Today, I want to talk with you guys about a high guard with MMA gloves on. If you are somebody who comes from a kickboxing, boxing background, and you really like having that high guard, but you're going, oh shoot, now I'm transitioning to MMA, and I don't like the idea of the high guard with these small gloves, or I like the idea, but I'm not sure what I need to know about it and how I'm going to utilize it properly, even though you've probably seen high-level guys like Petr Yan actually execute this very successfully. Well, today we're going to go through everything you need to know. Everybody probably already knows, but if not, you can tell. I have so many boxing gloves. I've had most of my fights in boxing gloves throughout my kickboxing career. And then towards the later stages, when Bellator was not able to offer me as many kickboxing fights, I jumped in and tried some MMA fights just for fun and to make sure that I still had some fight money coming in. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do, that I was super passionate about, but I figured, why not, until we get back to some kickboxing fights. And the very first day, I put on a pair of hybrid training gloves and I went into the gym and I had my brother doing pad work with me. The very first thing I noticed is the high guard does not work with a closed fist as well as in boxing, because in boxing gloves we have that nice cushion there. We can place our hands right up to our head and we can absorb shots. But as soon as my brother swung at me and my hand sort of bounced off my own head or pushed friction against my head, I went, oh, that's not very comfortable. Those knuckles do not feel nice. So what does that leave us with? Well, that means we have to go open hand right to here. But obviously the protection area around my head with these small 4-ounce gloves versus the normal 8 or 10 ounce, which I usually fight in, is so much smaller. So let's break down my thoughts on these gloves and how we can still effectively utilize them similar to guys like Petr Yan. So the very first thing that I want to tell you about competing in these gloves is you are going to have to rely on some head movement. You cannot strictly just be like a kickboxer where you keep your hands here and you never move your head. Even the guys who have their hands up are still moving around. And normally that does not work with a big boxing glove. If you want to be somebody who's slipping in kickboxing and you have a 10-ounce glove on here and you keep your hands up and you try and slip, your head has basically tripled in size due to the 10-ounce glove. But with these small ones, with these tiny, thin little MMA gloves, I can keep my hands up and still go about doing my head movement and be effective. So the first thing you should be doing, if you're thinking about transitioning to MMA, or you're just somebody who's been interested in MMA striking strictly the whole time, you need to get somebody to get some pool noodles or throw some punches at you, and you need to start getting that head movement down. So when people throw at you, you're not 100% reliant on blocking shots the way you might if they were boxing gloves. And head movement always comes in handy, because if you have a choice between blocking a shot or slipping a shot, slipping is always more ideal. Now, something else I want to point out when you have the big cushy gloves on is you don't really need to worry about lifting forearms up. But when we see guys like the Diaz brothers block punches, you'll see them raise the elbow, and now that becomes a blocking point. It compromises the stomach, leaves it open, yes, but I would rather fully protect my head and take a body shot and just have my stomach very tight than keep my elbows tight to my body and end up getting clipped because I don't block myself the way I want to. So if you're ever trying to add in an extra element of blocking and your hands are high, just raise up the forearms. The elbow raises up. Basically, I want to keep my right eye in line so I can still see you guys, but my left eye is somewhat blinded, and that's as far as I want to go. Over here is no good, and way over here is obviously no good because I just can't see anything. So I sort of go halfway down. I don't want to hang out there for too long, but if I see a big punch come, or even two punches, somebody comes 1-2, and I just keep this up here, boom, boom, both shots come off the elbow. Very effective way to block shots when you still have MMA gloves on. Now, we've talked about the head movement. We've talked about implementing the forearms. What we see Petr Yan do when he gets his high guard activated and people rush towards him, he's extra careful to keep his head very low, and he drops forward. As he does that, he drops forward, he's making his target that much smaller. He's not worried about the body anymore because his elbows have come down to protect. And now from here, he can shift his arms around his head and cover up any openings that might be there. Because with these gloves, There is no point where you're going to be able to block everything. You block up the middle, the side opens up. You go to block to the side, the front opens up. So as we are trying to block everything down the front and the middle, we're going to be that much safer if we can get a little bit lower. Now the elbows can block the body and my hands can shift around. And that's just an extra way that he utilizes the high guard with the MMA gloves to be that much safer. Now something else we see Yan do with his guard, with his high guard, is to make sure that one hand stays stapled to his face, and that's his back arm. That's his cross. His front hand, however, does not stay connected to the head most of the time. It's a little bit further out. Now this is still a high guard, but now from here you can utilize this as more of a rangefinder. Probably also helps if somebody goes for a takedown, you can get that bicep into their face. But in addition, with this arm out a little bit further, you can pick off shots, and if the big hook comes, you can start reaching, and this becomes something that can block, and this can become my backup. And this is something you might want to consider, because right in here, at a long range, it's probably not ideal for small gloves. This is better. This is a good position to be in. Some people can pull this off. Some people will feel comfortable here. But that all comes down to your capabilities and how good you feel about the position. If you feel like in here you're much too open, much too vulnerable, then maybe this is something that you will prefer. But the hand is still up, and I'm still utilizing this shoulder here to protect my jaw. Look at the difference. Shoulder down, shoulder up, much more protected. So with the smaller gloves, don't forget that you can utilize shoulders to protect the chin. And really the final thing that I want to talk with you guys today about in regards to having small gloves but wanting to use the high guard is when you strike, it's best to get your head off the center line as you throw, as opposed to staying right here all the time, which is what we often do in kickboxing or Muay Thai. So if you're going to go high guard, you're going to staple those hands to the head. If you're going to go on the attack, head off the center line. Throw some shots, head off the center line. I can drop that head from side to side. I need to return fairly often, otherwise I'm going to be off balance, but I throw a couple, head off the center line. Throw a couple, head off the center line. I like to move in with my initial shot, having my head off the center line, and then from there come back to normal, and then maybe finish with the head off the center line, which will then give you the opportunity to exit and then return to that high guard. Really, the only way to get super comfortable with this is to throw the gloves on, have somebody stand in front of you, and just work on your defense and understand what the new holes are, because there will be new holes, new openings for people to attack you with. But if you understand them and you make the changes to your guard that would have been possibly successful in boxing, but then you realize, okay, they're not successful anymore, I'll make some little changes. Now this guard might work for you, and you might be able to implement it the way we see some very high level MMA fighters do. So, overall guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode talking about these gloves. I myself am going to be doing some solid training research, just really getting comfortable with the Karate Combat gloves. These are 4 ounce, Karate Combat are 5.5. So a little bit bigger, but not a whole lot of extra protection, just more cushion through the knuckles, but not really any wider. So I'm going to have to get used to these and make sure that I'm feeling very comfortable and decide if I'm going to go, to a karate style stance, or if I'm going to go something in between, or if I'm going to go back to that guard. I don't know yet, but I do know all the information I gave you today is very important in making the decision on which way you're going to go. If you enjoyed the episode, you found it helpful, please give it a like. If you haven't already, join the channel, get subscribed. Train hard, guys, and I'll see you back here soon for another video.